The next question, the member for Ottawa-Orléans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Premier. Mr. Speaker, John in Orleans is in his 60s and he has cataracts. John relies on his optometrist to closely monitor this critical aspect of his health, and he's very concerned about his long-term eye health without regular examinations. And John isn't alone. Like I think everyone in this chamber, I've heard from thousands of constituents who support world-class OHIP-covered eye care and are frustrated with the government's inaction to ensure its continued delivery. I've heard from moms like Andrea, who, like many parents, have risen to the challenge this year, juggling work, kids at home, maintaining a household, and keeping their families safe. And now that their kids are headed back to school, they can't get an eye test. She wants to ensure that her children are able to see the smartboard and participate in extracurriculars they've been missing due to COVID. But due to the government's inaction, OHIP-covered eye exams have been non-existent for about a month, basically since school came back, Mr. Speaker. And like so many other issues facing the government, they wait until the absolute last moment, until they've broken the system and chaos has ensued, before they start to try to address the problem. So, Mr. Speaker, my question for the Premier.
Question.
When will the government take action on eye care? Now that they've broken it, when will they start to try to fix it?
Minister of Health.
Well, thank you very much, Speaker, and I thank the member opposite for the question. In fact, I know that people like John and Andrea and thousands of people across the province are relying upon their optometrists to provide them with the care that they need, whether it's glasses for school or people with cataracts, seniors that have other eye care problems. That is why we are very disappointed that the OAO has walked away from the mediation table. We are ready, willing, and able to correct some of the problems that they have been experiencing pursuant to the previous government. Their last agreement expired in 2011. I know that they are frustrated. We want to work with them. We want to bring them back to the table. But to date, they've refused to agree to the conditions that have been put in place by the independent mediator, not by the government. We have agreed to those conditions. The optometrists have not. So we are very anxious to resume those discussions, but as I indicated earlier, you can't negotiate when there's only one party at the table. So I urge the optometrists to come back to the table. We are anxious to resolve your issues. We have put $39 million into your accounts that will be paid mid-October, but optometrists have already received the statements as to what they'll be receiving. We urge them to come back to the table so we can reach an agreement that is satisfactory to both the optometrists and to the taxpayers of Ontario, because we have a financial responsibility there as well. But we are ready to discuss their concerns any.
Thank you very much. And the supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My supplementary is for the Premier. For months, optometrists were trying to engage the government in meaningful discussions to address the eye care funding issues in the province, and the government simply said no. The government and this Premier like to say no, Mr. Speaker. The Premier said no to supporting workers with paid sick days. The Premier said no to vaccine certificates. The Premier said no to smaller class sizes. And now the Premier is saying no to OHIP-covered eye exams. Shireen in Orleans is a mother of 4. Her kids need eye exams so that they can go back to school and see the board, but they're also suffering from headaches, and this eye exam is a critical aspect in diagnosing that particular problem. She's tried to book an OHIP-covered eye exam for her kids, and she was told no, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, when will the Premier actually start saying yes? When will he say yes to OHIP-covered eye exams and sit down and hammer out a deal to give Ontarians world-class eye care once again?
Minister of Health.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to, through you, Mr. Speaker, correct another fundamental misapprehension here. The government is still funding OHIP-covered eye services. However, the optometrists have chosen not to provide them. So the reason for this impasse lays at the feet of the optometrists at this point. They need to come back to the table to discuss this with us. We had a number of discussions 4 months before September 1st, which was the date that they decided that they would refuse to supply these services. Those, we had several mediation efforts, which came to a delay or just to a standstill, because the optometrists wanted us to agree to a foregone conclusion. We can't agree in advance to something that has to be negotiated. So we are ready, willing, and able to discuss this with them. We've said that for months and months. We want
Response?
to come to a conclusion with them to deal with their past issues, their present issues, and their future issues. So I would urge all of the members of the opposition to please discuss this with the Association of Optometrists. Ask them to come back to the table. So
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next question.